Western Ag Network on the road at the 68th Annual Montana Grain Growers Association Annual Convention, brought to you by Torgerson's.
I like to grow things. I like to put something in the ground and watch it grow, and then to be able to provide food for yourself and the rest of the world is a big thing, and that's something I enjoy doing.
In agriculture, if you grew up that way, it's about the only thing you know is you just keep, you get through the tough years, you enjoy the good years, and just what we do.
I wasn't born into farming, into a farming family. I married into a farming family, and I've been farming for, I think, close to 18 years now with my father-in-law.
We lost my dad this summer. He was 80 years old, and he'd farmed his whole life, and so it's hard, you know, getting through that transition, but we sure miss him. I'm a member of the Montana Grain Growers Association for the single fact that I see the return in investment. For $250 up to $1,500, the amount of knowledge and insight that you get from grain growers, and then not only that, there's the farm policy, government payments that we need from time to time, and it's just numerous things that make me a member.
We have continued within this last year to increase memberships. I think people are kind of waking up to you can't just sit idle anymore and watch things go by. You really have to be active, because if you're not, there is an active group that's opposing you in one way or another. I farm here in central Montana. I don't know what's working here, but that might not be working as well somewhere else in the state. So we need those memberships too. Those members to be able to speak up and let us know what's going on. And so to become a member, it gives you a very powerful voice.
I never thought I would be an officer in reality, but it's been the best part of me becoming a better farmer.
Get into the policy side and advocating for agriculture intrigued me. Knowing that it is a needed thing to be done so that our way of life as farming can continue. And so, someone needs to do it. It intrigued me, and I jumped into it, and now here I sit as the president of Montana Grain Growers Association. The first time on this farm, I didn't even think I was going to ever be a farmer. So, let alone be a president of a fantastic, ag organization like Montana Grain Growers Association. So, yeah, I know it's really funny how life goes, where God just takes you and puts you here and tends to use you. I hope that what we're doing is improving ag. I can tell you it is, and we have an important voice to offer to DC, to Helena, with Montana Grain Growers Association.
Well, hi everybody. It's time for another On the Road feature here on the Western Ag Network. I'm Russell Nemitz, and joining me is one of my broadcast partners, Lane Nordland. And Lane, today we're here in Montana's Golden Triangle, celebrating and taking in the Montana Grain Growers Association's 68th annual convention.
And Russ, as we look at 68 years of this organization, I think the video that we just watched really is a testament to those nearly 7 decades of advocacy, keeping those family farmers in business, and making sure that there's a voice not only here in Montana, but out in Washington, D.C. as well. And that's really going to be the focus of our On the Road segment here today. And, of course, we do want to thank our friends at Torgerson's Equipment for being the sponsor of all of our coverage from this year's Montana Grain Growers Convention. But, Russ, I'm excited to be joined by these outstanding ag leaders and, of course, farmers from right here in the Big Sky State.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and of course, the MGGA convention this year is in partnership and in a big cooperative team effort with our friends at the Northern Pulse Growers Association as well as the P&W Canola Association. And as we know, today's farmers aren't just about wheat and barley. We're raising a lot of different crops out there on the landscape to keep our next generation farming and ranching and also hopefully along the way just maybe being a little bit profitable.
A little bit profitable would be nice, wouldn't that?
Absolutely. Well, it is a treat to be here in Great Falls today for this On the Road segment. We're going to do a fireside chat, if you will, with the current MGGA officer team. And before we kind of turn things over with some Q&A with them, I'd just like to quickly welcome you each and thank you for participating in this fun segment this morning with us here on the Western Ag Network. And just going down the line, we have Steve Sheffels, the current secretary from Great Falls. We have Klayton Lohr, the current treasurer from Shelby. And then, of course, we have Boyd Heilig, the vice president of MGGA from that Moore country. We have Nathan Keane, the president of the Montana Grain Growers Association from Loma. And down there on the end, we have Tryg Cook from that Kalispell country, the immediate past president. So quite a panelist of expertise and knowledge, I would say.
No, I think this is a great way to kick off the convention here today. And we do want to thank all of our friends joining us on Facebook Live, YouTube, and our Twitter X. It's called X now, I guess. But I still call it Twitter. But again, thank you all for joining us here today. And Russ, I'll turn it over to you as we kind of look at some of these key issues that are impacting Montana's industry here today.
Yeah, I think we want to kick things off just learning a little bit more about each of these officers. And, I kind of mentioned where each of them is from, but as we go down the line, just tell us a little bit about where you farm and where your ag operation is, and I guess a little bit about your officer position at MGGA. Steve, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and your ag operation.
So again, I'm Steve Sheffels. We farm just northeast of Great Falls here. I'm, I think, the only member of the panel here that actually lives in town. So I have a little bit different perspective than maybe some folks. I came back to the family farm in 2007 and have attended every Montana Grain Growers Convention since then in an effort to bring myself up to speed and try to learn what's going on and what's happening in agriculture, and kind of got to the point where I figured it was really important to be able to give our story and be able to advocate for our industry.
And Klayton, for yourself, give a quick update on where you come from up there on the High Line.
All right. Again, Klayton Lohr, current treasurer from Shelby's kind of general. It's more the greater south, the Vaughan metropolitan area that I farm in. So
kind of a
I know Great Falls is kind of a big deal, but so is that area. But kind of my history into MGGA, my great uncle Ray Lohr from Carter was on the founding board of this organization and served as the 9th president. So it was always kind of a part of our family. I attended, I believe, 4 or 5 conventions in a row. When Lyle Benjamin told me if I kept showing up, somebody would come tap me on the shoulder and say it was time to get on the board, and it turned out that was a promise, not a threat. So he got me involved there, and it kind of snowballed into becoming an officer the next year. So, I guess that good enough?
That was a great answer. That's a great close, Klayton.
I could talk about what it's like to farm up
there. We're gonna circle back around. You're gonna have plenty of opportunity to tell us a little bit more about what's going on up there and your thoughts and opinions on key agricultural issues. But before, let's find out a little bit more about Boyd Heilig. I know for me it was a treat to come up this fall with Paul and get an opportunity to see you planting the last of your 2024 winter wheat crop. And so tell us a little bit about your farming operation up there, your family, and what it's been like to be an officer for MGGA and getting ready to take the reins of this wonderful organization.
Thanks, Russell. It was sure a pleasure to have you come down this fall and do that footage. That turned out really nice, Nathan and I. I'm Boyd Heilig, farm in Moore, south of Moore. And about 7 years ago, I got asked by Tom Butcher from Lewistown to take his spot as director of District 10. And then 4 years later, I got a call from Lyle Benjamin, and he asked me to step into the leadership role. And things haven't changed since then, Lyle. It's been great. It's been a good ride, and just looking forward to being your current vice president, organizer of this convention, and then on Friday become president.
Nathan, for yourself, let's talk a little bit about your background, of course, and then also being president for the past year.
A little bit about my background. So you heard on the video a little bit here. You know, I wasn't born into farming, and I never would have pictured myself, you know, being where I'm at currently. I married into a farm, and I was lucky enough to marry into a amazing family. My father-in-law had 3 daughters, and I married the oldest one. The oldest one was, they never even thought would ever even come back to the farm, let alone be the one, you know, helping to operate and take over the farm. So I definitely feel blessed in that way, and work just really well with my father-in-law, and just current operation is just my father-in-law and myself. Been there for the last 17 years. We are pretty diverse farm. We started off when I came on the farm, it was just winter wheat and fallow, and we have, you know, go anywhere from probably 6 to 10 different crops a year now. Keeps us pretty busy, but definitely like the rotation and what it's doing for our farm. As an officer, so being president, again, you know, I never would have pictured myself here. Just being on the board of Montana Grain Growers Association, I do remember our farm was kind of part of this local marketing group, kind of held together by Lockie Edwards. And I do remember after some talk, you know, they would bring up they were involved in grain growers, and they're talking policy, and I'm just like, what? You know, it kind of went over my head, but I was interested. And I remember talking to Lockie afterwards on one of our meetings, and I'd like to be more involved. Like, what do you have to do? And and I don't know. I'm not sure if Lockie believed in me right then, but it's kind of pat on the shoulder. Your time will come, maybe. Whatever. But it was sometime down the line, and I don't know how much time passed, but I did get a phone call from Lockie one day, giving me 2 hours to decide whether I want the nomination to be on the board, and I accepted that and ended up being elected to be on the board, and sat on the board for 1 term plus 1 more year into my 2nd term, and I was called up as an officer. And so here I am, and what a great organization to be a part of. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nathan. I've been to a lot of these state conventions and a lot of national conventions with both Lockie Edwards and Tom Butcher, and I'm glad you guys jumped in and threw your hats in this officer team thing, but boy, I'm not sure I'd take any advice from either one of those outside of this convention, though.
Oh, I don't know. That's a tough one, though.
So, Tryg, last but not least, you're the immediate past president of Montana Grain Growers Association, and tell us a little bit about yourself and where you farm and what it has been like to be part of this team.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, I did not marry the farmer's daughter, so I'm glad you got to. But anyways, I farm in Flathead County, and, I'm a first-generation farmer. I decided that, agriculture, growing up in agriculture, I just would always have to work for somebody, and I decided, let's make a dream become a reality. So fast forward 17 years, we farm about 2,500 acres there in Flathead County, and it's been a really great learning curve. We grow a lot of different crops there as well, and so it's now also being able to purchase some land and start a farm up in north central Montana, so being able to build this. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without the knowledge base and the people that we meet from the Montana Grain Growers Association, the officers, the directors, learning about, stuff on the east side and how we can blend and put things together, how farming is a lot alike on both sides of the state, but also so different. And so I can remember going to the Montana Ag Experiment Station and at a listening session when I very first or even heard about the Montana grain growers, and Ryan McCormick was standing up there talking about grain growers, and I'm like, this is an organization I think everybody should be a part of. And 13 years later, here we are.
And being that first generation farmer and hearing that message from Ryan, I guess, how has that changed the trajectory of your experience out in the field?
Well, I mean, it's night and day difference. The best part about being involved in this organization is there's always something new that you can learn and bring back to your farm, whether it's an FSA program, RMA program, USDA, whether it's just a farming practice that maybe Boyd's doing on his farm, and I'm like, hey, look, Boyd, this is working for you. Well, I think it can work for me. And same goes for Klayton. Hey, Klayton, how are you handling maybe drier situations? What should I be doing, to benefit our farm? And I think that's the biggest thing that I've been able to take away from this. From starting a farm, I had no idea what farm policy even was. And now it's just a whole nother side to agriculture.
Well, Tryg, you perfectly transitioned to that next point, farm policy. Obviously, we know that Washington, D.C., everything's just running smooth out there right now, it seems. With the humor aside, obviously, we did see this extension to the 2018 Farm Bill that was approved about 2 weeks ago at this point. And I'm going to center this for Nathan and Boyd here. Why is the Farm Bill so important? And what were some of the concerns before that extension was put into place? And what are some of these top priorities that Montana grain growers and the National Association of Wheat Growers are going to push forward to try and see, hopefully, a 2024 Farm Bill? Nathan, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so why is Farm Bill so important? Well, I see it as this. It is risk mitigation for us farmers. And without it, it would be pretty tough to survive. I think there'd be a lot less family farms in this country if we didn't have the Farm Bill. So it's pretty critical. Every time that a Farm Bill does come up, some of the things that are on the chopping block, number one is always the crop insurance subsidy. I don't think, a lot of new legislators come in, they see it, well, why are farmers getting a subsidy? What's the purpose of that? And we well know, Tryg can attest to getting a bill earlier this fall of how expensive your premium can be without that subsidy. He ended up not having everything signed correctly and got the full premium on some of his acres, and it's pretty mind-boggling to see that, and we wouldn't be able to afford insurance. And so what could we afford? Instead of insuring your place 60, 80, whatever percent that you typically do, without the Farm Bill, maybe 20%, but what's that going to do? You still have a full-on wreck and you're done, So it's critical. And then some of these programs that are funded, the MAP and FMD, the Market Access Program, and the Foreign Market Development Programs, we do know that this country has been struggling with exporting our wheat, and we need to be able to export because here in the state of Montana, 60% of our wheat that we produce is exported, and so we need avenues to be able to get it, and there is that, but we need more of that, and so asking for those things within it are great. There's so many other things I could keep talking on, but I won't. You have something?
Yeah, Boyd, what's your insight on it?
Just a quick insight. About 3 weeks ago, Nathan, I, and Allison got on a Zoom call with NOG, and they were discussing the Farm Bill and what kind of extension they wanted. And so the 4 commodity groups were all getting together, and they came up with the 1-year extension. And so to be a part of that meeting as a Montana producer that's part of this organization was a big deal.
Well, and I think that leads us into our next questions for Klayton and Steve. I mean, we got to hear from Nathan and Boyd during the video about why an MGGA membership is so important, and I think, the Farm Bill is just one of the many reasons of paying your dues is so important because you get that representation every single day, not just here in Montana, but of course with the national affiliate, National Association of Wheat Growers. But, for Klayton, why is a Montana Grain Growers Association membership so important to you and other farmers?
Well, I'll kind of piggyback a little bit off of the crop insurance thing because I haven't raised a crop in 3 years. Still, we got some moisture this fall, but crop insurance has saved me, you know, and having the knowledge that you do through organizations like this and the speakers that we bring, you know, you learn where you need to be to best protect yourself, and that's been huge. The other reason to have a membership would be the amount of respect that MGGA has throughout this country. It has really blown me away. You know, I've seen a lot of that in the 2 years. One of the big things that I got to do this last year, policy related, was you know, Boyd with his dad passing away. I was able to fill in for him at National Barley Growers, and I was there to nominate our own past president, Mitch Conan, and he was elected to go through those chairs. So the amount, like I said, the amount of respect that we have on a national level is just amazing.
Those are some really, really good reasons. Steve, I'm anxious to hear, you know, your thoughts on why an MGGA membership is such a great investment, not just for yourself, but your fellow farmers, and not just for those of us here in Great Falls, but those that can't be with us this morning.
One of the big things for me is the information you get. Our magazine that comes out every month is a great spot for finding out, you know, what's the next thing coming down the line in terms of what I got to sign up for at the FSA office, or what should I be thinking about? Is there a new kind of program coming in the next farm bill that I got to start thinking about for when it finally, if it ever gets through? And then one of the things that I've learned since being associated in the officer role and getting a little bit closer to our advocacy in Helena is that, you know, we've got a short list of bills and things that we have success with and getting them passed, but much more important is the very many bills that we argue against and keep, you know, things from happening that really affect all of our lives. I know one of the things that got suggested up in the Kalispell area was that farmers shouldn't be able to be on the highway between the hours of 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And that would have just absolutely killed all the agriculture in the Flathead Valley, but people in the Flathead Valley, some of them thought that was a good idea. So being able to stop things like that from getting through are as important, if not the most important thing we do.
Well, again, that membership is key, and that's really the focus of our conversation here this morning, too. Why is membership important? But as I mentioned at the start of our On the Road segment, Torgerson's is bringing you all this coverage from here at the Montana Expo Park, but also on our radio and digital programs as well. So we're going to take a quick commercial break to hear from our friends at Torgerson's right now.
Even when you have to weather the storm, even when the unexpected happens, even when the local environment slows things down, we will get you what you need when you need it. We are committed to getting you back in the seat, back to work, back to what matters. At Torgerson's Equipment, we know what matters most: community, family, working every day to make your day more productive.
And welcome back to the Western Ag Network's On the Road feature, coming to you today from Great Falls, Montana, the 68th Annual Montana Grain Growers Association's annual convention in partnership with the Northern Pulse Growers Association and, of course, the PNW Canola Association. And Lane, today's feature is all about the Montana Grain Growers Association current officer team, and we've been talking to them a little bit about their own their farming operations across Big Sky country, and we've dove into some farm policy a little bit. But Tryg, I want to come to you next because, you know, a lot of what we do in agriculture wouldn't be possible without all of that important research work that's being done from land-grant universities across the country, including right here in Montana at Montana State University.
Absolutely, and that's something that we're, you know, the Montana Grain Growers Association has a very, very close, you know, network with MSU, and you know, we take all of our ideas, and whether it's new varieties, whether it's disease and pest control, whether it's maybe it's dealing with disease, how we can send pictures in now to identify disease on a plant. And that wouldn't all be possible without, you know, you guys out in the audience and us being able to have that relationship with MSU. And being the past chairman of the Maize Advisory Committee, we've been able to go in and testify, you know, on behalf of MGGA and Maize. And this is one of the biggest, you know, wins that the Maize has had. You know, financial wins. You know, all of our farms, we all know that our costs have gone up drastically, and so we really went in and fought and advocated that the same thing would happen for our friends there at MSU. You know, the farm labor, the scientists, you know, the mechanics, they all needed some help. You know, their fertilizer costs have gone up, so we were right there advocating, and it's one of the largest wins that we had with MSU was, you know, coming out of the legislature this year. And I think that's something that we all need to take a lot of pride in, because without MSU, we don't have all this other stuff. We don't have new varieties. We don't have, you know, I know on the pulse side there's new chickpea varieties, new lentil varieties coming up. Without that collaboration with MSU, we wouldn't have that. Right, so that's the importance. It's not just legislation in DC, it's our own hometown legislation that we have as well. It's just as important when we go fight for maize or whatever the industry may be in Helena itself.
And also, as we look at the global end of things as well here today, Nathan, you just returned from a trip led by Governor Gianforte with a whole host of agriculture organizations from the state of Montana. How important are these export markets for Montana producers?
Yeah, you know, export markets, it's critical for the state of Montana. Like I mentioned, you know, earlier of you know, how much wheat we actually export. You know, 60% of our wheat needs to be exported. And without that, we're in trouble, and we tend to see stagnant prices or prices declining. And you know, we're kind of seeing that a little bit now just with the lack of exports. But to have countries like Taiwan, it is truly amazing to go there. They love our wheat. They love that we can continue to produce high quality grain for them, and they count on it, and they love it. And in fact, you know, so I had to fly, you know, on the other side of the world to kind of go to a mill that uses our wheat, and they made the best bread I've ever had. I mean, it was incredible. But absolutely important. It's one of our one of the countries that imports, you know, a lot of wheat from us, and they continue to do so because they know that we raise high quality wheat.
Yeah, very well said. And well, friends, we just have a few minutes left of this fireside chat, and we kind of want to wind things down with each of you in the time remaining, just talking about the significance of having this year's joint convention. Not just the Montana Grain Growers Association convention, but as we've been mentioning, in partnership with the Northern Pulse Growers Association and also the PNW Canola Association. Steve, let's start with you. How important and why is it important that we have this cooperation and this team effort?
Well, for me personally, our farm has been somewhat maybe old school. We are wheat and barley, and we've grown wheat and barley for a lot of years, and we occasionally tried a different crop, but nothing ever really stuck. And through my education here, I've realized that a rotation is something that we want to work towards. So I'm a member of both of our co-organizations, even though until last year I'd never grown any of their crops, because I think it's important, because I'm going to be a future grower of their crops. And we did have some peas last year, so go us.
Klayton, what about you?
So, yeah, at the start of this, you mentioned profitability. And so I have tried just about everything. But the being able to collaborate with these organizations, I have grown pulses in the past. I am the typical young progressive farmer here. A couple years ago, I intercropped chickpeas with Roundup Ready Kochia. So that was a cool experiment. But
and you stressed you are the young producer on the MGGA team.
But it's just with some of these new markets coming up, you know, we've learned a lot about renewable diesel stuff with the canola, like Karen had mentioned, there's just going to be a lot of opportunity, and it's good to keep an open mind. I mean, I still love wheat. Eat more gluten always, but it's cool to be able to work with these other organizations.
Boyd?
It's been a privilege of mine. We started this convention back in March, and working with canola and northern pulse growers has been a eye-opener for me, getting to know Karen and Aaron, and it's been, everybody asks why we're doing it, but I was like, why would we have 3 conventions when we could have all in one and get people to Great Falls all together and learn together? So it just makes sense to me.
Nathan?
Yeah, to go along with that, I mean, most of us farmers here are doing some kind of rotation, and it's, you know, they all kind of work off one another very well. I've just noticed in our farm, growing this different rotation that we're doing, these oil crops and pulses and cereal grains, I mean, they just benefit from one another. The lack of disease that we're finding, the better our soil, we're getting better organic matter. I mean, just everything works. And so to have these organizations here, it's a one-stop shop kind of deal. We all get to learn. We all get to talk. What's working for you for crop rotation? Why are you doing this? You know, it just works really well. So we're all doing it, and it just kind of makes sense.
And Tryg, give us your thoughts on why this joint convention is so important and obviously off to a great start.
Yeah, I just think, you know, as we approached our board of directors with this, everybody in the room came back, almost everybody was trying a different crop, right? And so we, you know, upon their request and all of us talking, it's like, hey, we don't just grow wheat and barley anymore, you know, and we're dealing with a lot of the same buyers, right? Maybe whether it's CHS or Columbia or whoever it might be, you know, they're buying your pulses, they're buying your wheat, they're buying your barley. And we just felt that, hey, look, this is such a great opportunity for pulses, because I want to learn about pulses, but I may not be able to go to another convention and just to theirs. But if I can come here and I can learn about canola and I can learn about wheat and I can learn about barley and we can advocate for these things, hey, Montana Grain Growers is still going to be pushing for wheat and barley. That's what we do, but there's no reason why we shouldn't have collaboration with these other groups, because we're stronger in numbers, you know. So when we go to DC, we're advocating for this. We can go as a farmer's organization and have some knowledge on other crops as well.
Absolutely, well said. And Lane, it does make sense. Dollars and cents.
Dollars and cents. And, you know, I do want to point out, Steve, that if this farming deal doesn't work out, National Laundry is always looking for people to work over there. Steve was ironing some of the tablecloths this morning when I pulled into town. So, yeah, these officers go above and beyond. So let's give a big round of applause to all of our officers joining us here today.
Well, it's been a fun and very informative on-the-road segment today from here in Great Falls at the 68th Annual Montana Grain Growers Association's annual convention. A great way to kick off this joint convention between MGGA, the Northern Pulse Growers Association, and PNW Canola Association for sure. Lots of information, lots of networking, and of course, we are going to have a little bit of fun during these next 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, do you prefer Coors Banquet or Coors Original?
Buckskin.
Yeah, we gotta answer that question. But again, we just want to thank our friends at Torgerson's for sponsoring the Western Ag Network coverage on radio, TV, and of course here on our Facebook and YouTube channels. Thanks for joining us here today. And if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to us on YouTube and Facebook at Western Ag Network. On behalf of the entire Western Ag Network team, Russell Nimitz and myself, I'm Lane Nordlund. Thanks for joining us here on the road.
Western Ag Network on the road at the 68th Annual Montana Grain Growers Association Annual Convention, brought to you by Torgerson's.